Major support for these broadcasts is provided by the CUNY TV Foundation, New York Community Bank, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chelsea Lighting, Capital One Bank, Genova Burns, Giantomasi and Webster, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, the Witkoff Group, Greenberg Traurig, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance. Additional support is provided by Ackman Ziff Real Estate Group, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Briarwood Organization, C.B. Richard Ellis, Colliers International New York, Cushman and Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, DDG, Friedman LLP, Accountants and Advisors, Flushing Bank, Herrick Feinstein LLP, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Centurion Holdings, John Katsimatidis, Red Apple Group, Corman Communities, a.k.a. Hotels, Madison Realty Capital, Margolin Weiner and Evans, LLP, Certified Public Accountants and Business Advisors, Massey Knackle Realty Services, New Banks, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, Popular Community Bank, Sterling and Sterling, SJP Properties, Stonehenge Partners, Urban American, and These Friends.
It must be crazy when one friar invites some other friars. Now, somebody said, no, we don't have monks, but we're friars. We're all members of the Friars Club. We have an honorary member also here, Sidney. And today, I'm bringing the Friars and Friends of the Friars to discuss the music and cabaret scene in New York. And I am so lucky to have one real performer over here.
All right, we gotta go. Sorry.
Okay. He picked on me before. The legendary Len Cariou, Tony performer, Blue Broads, everything else, Sweeney Todd's. The entertainer over there, Stan Gilbert. Sidney Myers, an entertainer and a booker. Jamie deRoy, and last but never least, Marc Eliot. So, you are TV, film, everything. I mean, I could put you in anything. How come you went back recently to perform at Below 54?
54 below.
Okay.
Can't get it straight.
I can't get it straight. What do you want? I'm with the kibitzes over here.
Well, the reason I went back was because I hadn't been singing very much, and I was missing singing. And then I thought, well, what kind of an evening am I going to put together? And a lot of these, Jamie was doing it, Mark was doing it, Stan was doing it.
But they all said with friends. You had more than they did. They had to make believe that they had friends, okay?
Well, so I started to think, well, I went back and thought about a nightclub act that I did when I was in my 20s in my hometown in Winnipeg, Canada. And actually, I was 18 because that's a drinking age in Manitoba. And so there were only about 3 rooms that you could play in the city because it's only a city of about a million people. Not even at that point. It was maybe 750. So anyway, to shorten the story a little, I went back and looked at the material that I used. Then I sang, and made an extraordinary connection in my head because I met the composers of these songs when I did Applause in 1969. I met all the composers of the songs that I was singing in my nightclub act. And that summer, I literally met them all because they all came to see Applause. And they all came backstage, and that's how I got, and I didn't think about it when I was doing Applause. But when I started to do the act, I thought, my God, I've met all these men and women, and it seemed to me an interesting anecdote.
How do you feel about the show, putting it together? Sidney's books events all the time at Don't Tell Mama. How do you feel, and we were talking before and we'll continue talking, how do you see the music and cabaret scene today in New York City?
Well, I think that it's pretty vital. There seems to be more venues coming. I mean, we're losing a couple. The Algonquin and the Regency are going away. But I think the Regency, I think Michael is probably going to have...
Oh, he'll have it. He'll have a
a place somewhere, won't he?
Oh, yeah.
Michael Feinstein, I mean. And but 54 below, the Metropolitan Room, the Carlisle, you know, I think Don't Tell Mama. There's another couple on your street, isn't there, Sidney, on 46th Street?
Well, on 42nd, there's a Laurie Beachman.
Oh, right, yeah, of course, and the Laurie Beachman, yeah.
You've been a performer. You still performed recently last night, and you produce these shows. How do you see the music and cabaret scene today?
Well, I always get nervous, and I'm nervous up until like usually the night of, but.
I'm happy you're not nervous being here.
I mean, I think it's a scary thing to, you want to fill the room. Most of the clubs, I mean, unless you're maybe playing Feinstein's or the Carlisle or something where you're on a salary, you're pretty much working for the door in most cases. So
explain to me, what do you mean working on the door? So if Stan is performing, he gets he gets a piece of the bar scene, or a piece of the.
Oh, that would make it easy.
That would be lovely. That would be so lovely. No, you only get a percentage, and every percentage is different, and I'm sure that every performer is different.
So you get a percentage
of the cover.
Of the cover. So if there's a $20 cover, you get X piece of the cover.
Whatever it is, yeah. So, you want those seats filled. For me, as a presenter of not just myself, but all my friends, I want them to have a full house. They're coming there, they're performing gratis. I want them to have the best experience that they can have. And, in that, they're getting good lights, good sound, but I want a full house. So I do everything I can to get them a full house. And so, look, it's just a scary thought. I mean, somebody will play a club 2 nights in a row. The first night will be packed, the second night won't be. It's just the way things go. I mean, I played Atlantic City in a lounge. You were talking about performing to 3 people. The one night I did have to perform to 3 people. That's the night the head of the entertainment came in and saw me. But you know what? It was one of the best shows ever. I played the Monkey Bar for a 1.5 years solid, where I did get a salary, by the way. Not a big one, but a salary.
So a salary.
And you could play to 7 people, or you could play to 70, but you have to give the same amount to that audience.
I know Stan and Marc playing because I've seen both of them playing. I've seen Len, but Stan, when he does Thursday night at the Friars, Marc, when he does Marc and Friends at the Friars, they perform. They love it. They're performing because they're caring about it. Okay, it's the love of the music. It's the love of the performance. It's why you went back.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
That's it. You perform, and then you also produce shows with Sidney. Talk about.
We've produced shows. These are people that want to come in and.
But why do you do it? Okay, what do you?
Why do I
mean, besides when I'm in the schwitz you're singing in the shower over there. Fortunately,
that was you.
Okay.
Why do we do it? Because we love the music. Essentially, that's the core of it. We love the music, and we want to share it with everyone.
So how do we get that next? Okay, I realize we're all above 20. Okay, except for Ellie over here. How do we get that next group? Who Sidney? How do these young people who want to get into this business get to Don't Tell Mama, or get to be at the Friars or somewhere else? How do these people get there?
Well, I think Cabaret traditionally in New York is known as being the first door open to people who come to these shores. I mean, if someone wants to be in a show, but no one knows them, they put themselves in their own shows. So that's Cabaret's going back for decades. There's so many people who've made their mark on Broadway and television and Hollywood, but if you go back far enough, they started out in Cabaret because it was the first door open to them.
Didn't you talk about, you focused, on your website, Sammy Davis Jr.'s wife would say that, if she closed her eyes, she would think that your voice is like Sammy.
Until she opened and started.
Okay. But why do you get involved? Tell me, you love this. I mean, you write. You walk through Central Park and
for me,
you perform.
For me, it's probably a similar story to everybody else. I would listen when I was a kid to my father, while he was listening to his Nat King Cole and his Al Jolson and Sinatra and his Matt Monroe, and I got to be honest, I fell in love. To me, there is nothing better, more powerful, more soothing, more upsetting than music. So for me, it's the passion. It's, I sometimes I feel like it's my job to just, and it's self-appointed, to carry the torch. But I love it. And
How I know we have some young people at the Friars who perform. How difficult is it for a young performer? I mean, look, you've been in the business so many years, and
Yeah, a long time.
Okay, how hard is it to make it in this business? How
Well, it's how do you define making it?
Right.
Because there are some really unbelievably gifted performers that we've all seen and we've all worked with. But
so what do we
as a
consider
kid,
making it?
I would say it's doing what you love and making enough to sustain yourself, to make a living from it.
Yeah, I
That's
would
making
agree with that's making it.
And sometimes it's not even what you set out to do. I mean, I set out to do what Len does. I mean, I'd be in musical theater. And the audition that was open to me at AFA when which, quickly became ICM, was to sing in nightclubs. And I was so innocent, I was like, I sing. Barry Manilow was my musical director. I had to call him up because they said to me, how many charts do you have for how many instruments? And I knew what charts was, and I knew I didn't have them. And I called Barry, who's now in town doing, there's hope for all my musical directors, that I called him up. I said, we need charts.
Yeah.
But who's performing today at Don't Tell Mama? Who are you booking over there? And how do the people find out about it? I know Stan brings people. How do people? I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Brooklyn. Okay. How do they find out to perform at Don't Tell Mama? How do they get to the Metropolitan Room? How do they get to
well, I think so much is on the internet these days that you
right.
find these places. I know for me, when I put people in a show, I like to mix it up with people that someone might know and somebody might not know. And on my next show at 54 Below, I have Larry Gatlin, who's a country music star, Tanya Pinkins, who's a Tony Award winner. I have a violinist that's so unbelievable, Daisy Joplin. She's from London originally, and she's amazing. I mix it up. I like to put a funny person. This time we have Corey Kahaney, who's hysterical. But I've had Kevin Meaney. I've had Judy Gold, and you mix this up. And then I have an actor, Louis Cleo, who's in Book of Mormon. I'm there on Monday night, March 4th. Louis Cleo doesn't have a show that night, so he's coming to me to do this, and he's excited about it.
Who's going? Okay, you got the performer, but who's the audience? Tell me who's the audience today for these musical performers? Okay, do we have the Y generation? Yuppies, you're too old for the word yuppie. Generation Y. Who comes to listen? Who was the people when you recently performed?
Well, I think that I don't have a publicist of my own, so we went to the 54 Below. Obviously has.
People know it's a cabaret.
Yeah.
Okay,
and they promoted it, and even the Friars Club did a
but who's coming?
An email.
Okay, what I'm saying.
So I guess it's primarily through the internet.
No, but I'm talking. What's the age? Who's coming to performances today? Don't Tell Mama? Who's coming to 54 Below? Who's coming to the Metropolitan Room? What's the age, the venue?
Well, I think that the age range is quite large, but when you talk about paying for a ticket and drinking and getting and going for dinner, you're probably
expensive
talking in that
proposition.
50 to 70 cent. Yes, there are 20s, 30s, 40s, but I think it's
Sure.
I
it's
think
us.
It's a wide, I think it's a wide
It is.
range.
It is a wide.
Speak for yourself. We're much younger than you.
I also think it's everyone may have a different demographic. For instance, when Len Cariou performing, they're fans of his of all ages, people who know his theater work, people who know his television work. We have gospel shows.
Movies.
Whatever. I mean, we present everything from magicians to rock bands. I mean, everyone also may have, every artist may have a different appeal too, which cuts across generations.
But what about specifically singers, okay? Torchlight singers like him or like Mark. Who's your audience, Mark? No,
My audience, you know, it's funny. The age range of my audience is probably anywhere from 30 to death, we'll call it. But the truth is,
Right.
that's the truth. Yeah, exactly. What I'm finding fascinating is that with every show, the audience actually gets younger. And to me, to have
great.
it is great, and to find somebody in their 20s or even younger that not only knows the music, but has a passion for it. I don't know about you, but that's why I do it. If I can just, you know, share that, you know, with someone like that, it's unbelievable.
You know, Stan, you've been performing the Central Park Orchestra, some other things. You know, I did find this on the web. I know you didn't realize, but, you know, so you've been performing also on the weddings, the bar mitzvah, the social scenes, the parties. Okay, are many of those people who perform with you, okay, that you coordinate, and also you're a great singer, do they perform in the cabaret venues?
Sure.
Yeah, a lot of
Absolutely.
Okay, so would you say, in addition to the people who wanted to make it an acting or you know, going there, many of them started, you know, it's like Stewie. We were joking about Stewie Stone. He was a drummer originally, you know.
Yeah.
How do people get into this? You know, were you ever in that circuit? In the wedding and the bar
What's her
mitzvah?
name?
Well,
I can't think of her name. Started out as a wedding singer. Her father had a band. I can't think of her name.
Hillary?
No, not, well, Hillary did
Hillary
too.
too, yeah.
Hillary too, that's right.
Yeah.
And LaTanya. but-
Well, you know, when I was 15 and 16 years old, I was schlepping equipment for a wedding band. But my reasoning behind it was, I would get experience in front of an audience, and I would learn all the songs. Because that's the next thing. Where do you know, now it's a little bit easier, but in 1970 something, where do you go to learn all these songs? Aside from singing with your father's records or whatever, where do you go? And
Went to
you know,
Colony.
Please, you know, there's
but-
no more
well,
colony.
I got to
There's
say
no
this
more
though.
colony
Louis
records.
Villano gives me a book of 500 tunes with all the keys, and that's how
you know what?
That's where you start.
But you know, let's really look at it this way. You know, I did on one of my shows on my life story. I did the life of cantor Joseph Malavani, and Joe Malavani is a world-renowned cantor, and I recently wanted to hear one of his. I went on to Pandora or iHeart or something like that, and I was able to. Now, allegedly, he's getting some money from the streaming music, but in a way, since we don't have records and CDs are dying, you know, streaming media is helping the world. Okay, today it really has an effect on that, and people can hear that they couldn't hear before. I mean, I had Lloyd Price, and he tells me, Lottie Miss Clottie, no offense, Lloyd's a little older than me or everyone sitting in this room, and I wanted to hear this song, Lottie Miss Clottie. I went on the sites and I heard the song, and he even got a royalty. So, you know, that is something over there that changes the world.
Well, digital media is a big deal now, and
Is that going to help the cabaret and music scene?
well, can't hurt. The more people, you know, I'm working with somebody now, getting everything on that, you know. In
I
that
mean,
venue.
Jamie, you know, if you look at her website and read this, she has a number of albums. Okay, there's no more albums. Okay, I mean,
There's
Right,
YouTube.
but
there's
there's-
YouTube and
there's
there's
YouTube.
and iTunes. It's really
Right.
more iTunes, I think.
please, we're very happy to say that every one of the Stoller Report shows are on YouTube and iTunes, and people literally, because I see where they come from around the world, want to know about real estate and want to know what's happening in New York, and they access this.
But those are the new stores. That's where sadly, Colony closed. But the truth is, now when you want something, you go to iTunes.
Absolutely.
You just go to the web. It tells you where it is, how much it cost, what the lyrics are, who wrote it.
How do you find, when you're booking people, how do you find new talent?
Well, I go to a lot of clubs. I see as many shows as I can. Obviously I can't see everything, but I really, I mean, it's not an odd thing for me to be at a matinee in the afternoon on a Saturday, obviously not a, and you know, maybe another evening performance, and if there's a late show at night, I would run over to the Carlisle or, you know, to wherever, or and catch people. And sometimes I just see somebody, or somebody recommends somebody to me. I mean, Peter Cincotti was recommended to me when he was quite young. I was doing Jamie deRoy and Friends at Don't Tell Mama, and he was a guest on my show. I think he was 15. I was the first person that ever brought him into a recording studio. But I went to somebody's New Year's Eve party and found Daisy Joplin. Everybody's talking. It was the rudest audience I've ever seen. But I sat there like, oh my God.
There was a comment prior to the show when we were sitting in the green room about it's easier. Years ago in TV, there were 3 stations, there were 3 networks, and now, you know, singers, performers aren't on them. Because, what was
Well, I was
Sydney?
saying years ago, wherever you were in the nation, the music that we're basically talking about, the Great American Songbook in general, that came to you wherever little town you were in America. There was all these shows emanating from New York, the Ed Sullivan Show, Gary Moore, Jack Paar, even the late night shows. There were radio stations that played this music. So it all went to these people around the country. You could be somewhere in Iowa, but you could learn about what was going on in the Village, that Barbra Streisand was singing there, or Peggy Lee, because they would be on television. And now so many of the artists that appear in Cabaret, not all, but so many of the artists who are, you know, the torch carriers for this music, they don't have those avenues of radio stations that play this music, or television.
Radio they don't, but television, I mean, there are so many late night shows that people...
But they don't.
But they're,
Senate.
yeah.
They're not booking singers.
They're not booking.
No, they're booking comedians and.
Why?
They have music
Why
acts, but they're rock
singers,
acts.
I mean, when I go to Thursday night at the Friars, I really love it. You know, it's warm. I love music. I'm not a singer, but you know, why aren't the
It's the
TV
demographic.
booking singers anymore?
I really don't know.
Any
They
idea?
do. They book rock bands.
Yeah.
That's what the people who are up at that hour want to see.
So I'm going to ask you about venues. You live in New Jersey, and other people. I mean, are there cabaret scenes? Are there clubs in other places that there are good, you know, like Second City, you know, like the rookie locations, like the minor leagues of baseball, where somebody can perform and then come to the big leagues?
Do you guys know? I don't think there are over.
I don't really think there is, but Sidney.
Well, people can go to, you know, Monday nights at Cast Party at Birdland. There, Tuesday nights after the shows at 54 Below.
Right.
There's what they call backstage. I mean, there are these open mics that people can go and get up and perform. But that's one song. That's, you know,
Right.
You know, I mean, if you're like super fantastic, somebody might find you. I mean,
But is anyone looking is the question.
probably not.
Right.
But I mean, I
There's a lot
came
of
up in the
talent.
days of the improv, and Steve Paul's The Scene, where they brought Tiny Tim into the scene as a joke. And the joke was on everybody else when he became the star on the Tonight Show. It was
Okay,
like-
but you know what, but in the same way, let's say Stan or Mark is performing at a you performed. I remember New Year's Eve. You were at in Gramercy Park.
Right.
Okay. Somebody's at these parties and they hear you. I mean, how often is it that somebody who's performing gets that opportunity to get to the next thing?
But here's the thing, you know, I think, and it is a young person's world, I think at 20, 25, or 30, there's a career there. I think anybody comes in and forgive me, sees either one of us, oh yeah, he's really good. Can I get a drink? You know, I think that's what's, you know, I don't know that to be
Have
true,
you-
but it feels like it's true.
So here's the question. I throw the question to the booker, the producer, the agent. Are there really any great new people that you've seen?
Oh, there's no dearth of talent in every.
So how hard is it for that dearth of talent to get that opportunity to be?
It's almost impossible.
Well, I don't think it's just limited to music. A very great casting director who named Joanna Merlin, who worked for Mr. Harold Prince for years, she once said to me that anyone in any aspect of show business, if they were entering it, the test would be do you yearn to do it? Do you yearn to do it? Because unless you do, to put up with all the disappointment,
that's right.
rejection,
Why I'm sitting here, you and I are not, you're even a performer. All of you yearn to do it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you better have the fire in the belly, as I like to say.
Exactly.
I think
Right.
I think you're putting it exactly right. You have
That
to have the
you-
fire in the belly, and you know, sometimes, as we were joking before, sometimes you better have a day job to afford this opportunity
Yep.
to try to perform.
Or to finance what you need, the charts. You think the charts were expensive
Well,
back in the
I
day?
know.
Now it's ridiculous. But the truth is that we do it because we have the fire. And we're all still here, so we still have the fire.
Well, before Mario Cantone made it, I was doing my shows at Caroline's on Broadway. I had been trying to get Ron Delsener to come and see me when I was a solo act, because I always wanted to, you know, open for somebody of some concert he was producing. Now it was in the early 90s, and I'm doing Jamie deRoy and Friends, and Mario Cantone is one of my guests. He was so excited that Ron was in the audience. Ron Delsener, from that one performance, hired him to open for Shirley Bassey. And I'm not taking credit for Mario's, you know, success in any way. He was the one that had it. But he got that thing at Carnegie Hall opening for Shirley, and just after that, a lot of other things
we
happened.
recently had the inauguration. Do I ever, you know, and there's a question if they lip sang and all the rest, okay, on these singers. These people aren't cabaret entertainers. They're different type of performers, okay? You know, the ones, the Beyonce or the others, there's a different world.
Well, it's a whole, I mean,
Well,
you know.
they're megastars.
Right, it's a whole different
No,
stratosphere.
they're megastars,
But
it's
yet
a
most of
different-
those people started singing in clubs.
Sure they did.
And who was the comment that you were saying a lot of these people came out of who were from Star Search and other things really started in clubs also?
Well, absolutely. Even Whitney Houston, I remember seeing her at Sweetwater's, which
Yeah.
was a famous club in the 80s here. Most of them have that background. Everyone begins somewhere.
I think Sissy Houston brought her in one night as a guest, and you know, Sweetwater's was on Amsterdam in like 70th. It was a great place. Pat Benatar started at Catch a Rising Star, and she started when I first saw Pat. She was singing "Home" from The Wiz, and then they started getting her to sing like Roy Orbison songs, and then they move on to a different punk
Having
rock.
5 performers and 1 friar, okay, together in 26 minutes is inappropriate. But I'd like to thank my fellow friars and friends for being here. Len, Stan, Sidney, Jamie, and Mark. And I'll see you next week.
Thank you.